Royal shocker. Princess Leonor leaves Spain for love, Christian waited in Denmark. It was supposed to be a quiet royal weekend, a short break for reflection after months of public duties. Spain's crown princess, the future queen, expected to rest, away from the spotlight. But the world woke up to something no one saw coming. Princess Leonor, the pride of Spain, the disciplined heir trained for duty, had done the unthinkable. She left Madrid, and flew to Denmark. Not for diplomacy, not for duty, but for love. And waiting for her, was Prince Christian. The story that began as a whisper has now shaken two royal houses. Because what happened between Spain's heir and Denmark's prince could rewrite royal history in 2025. The moment it broke, social media exploded. Leonor has left Spain, the headlines read. She's in Copenhagen. Photos began to surface, grainy at first, of a young woman in a beige coat stepping off a discreet flight into the Danish night. Her security detail was minimal. Her face half hidden under a scarf. But the silhouette, unmistakable. Princess Leonor de Bourbon. The destination wasn't random. It was Denmark, home of Prince Christian, the future king of one of Europe's oldest monarchies, and the young man who, according to palace insiders, had been quietly connected to Leonor for months. But let's rewind. How did we get here? For years, Leonor's life has been defined by discipline, the Royal Academy, military training, language study, and a carefully measured public image. Every smile, every gesture, perfectly poised. She was raised to represent the crown, not herself. But beneath the calm surface, something was changing. While attending international events in 2024, Leonor and Christian were often spotted exchanging brief conversations, royal gatherings, summits, and youth forums. It seemed harmless, diplomatic, normal, until it wasn't. Behind closed doors, the two young heirs reportedly stayed in touch, quietly, privately, far from the eyes of palace protocol. And when Leonor's schedule lightened in early 2025, she did something few expected from the most disciplined royal of her generation. She followed her heart. Eyewitnesses say Leonor arrived in Copenhagen on a private visit, no official announcement, no state escort, just her and a close aide. Prince Christian, fresh from his own royal duties, was waiting for her. The two were seen walking near Amalienborg Palace's side gardens late that evening, dressed casually, talking and laughing under the soft glow of streetlights. It wasn't a grand display of affection. It wasn't defiance. It was something simpler, and more powerful. Two young royals trying to find a moment of normal life amid centuries of tradition. And yet, that single act sent shockwaves across Europe. Because for Leonor to leave Spain, without a public explanation, was something unprecedented. Inside the Spanish royal household, tension reportedly followed. The palace maintained silence, but insiders described the mood as strained. King Felipe, always the image of control, was said to be deeply concerned, not out of anger, but out of fear. Fear of perception, fear of the story being twisted into scandal. Queen Letizia, on the other hand, reportedly understood. Those close to her say she told aides privately, "She's young, but she knows what she's doing. Let her have this." It was a rare divide, not of love, but of approach. Because this wasn't just a royal crush. This was the heir to Spain's throne stepping into her own story. The world's fascination grew. What does this mean for the Spanish crown? Could Leonor, the carefully prepared future queen, balance duty and emotion in a way no heir has done before? In Denmark, the reaction was just as intense. Prince Christian, known for his charm and discretion, suddenly found his private life under a global microscope. Danish media called it the meeting of destinies. Spanish headlines called it love or rebellion. But neither palace issued a denial. Not one word. And that silence, that carefully orchestrated silence, spoke louder than any press release. Days later, Leonor was seen leaving Copenhagen, again without official comment. But the photos told their own story. She was smiling, light, unburdened, and those who know her best say something changed in her eyes, as if, for once, she wasn't a princess under duty. She was simply Leonor. But the question remained, was this a romantic escape, or the beginning of something far greater? Curiosity deepened when Christian was spotted visiting Madrid just weeks later, unofficially, quietly, his presence confirmed only by a few sharp-eyed locals near Zarzuela Palace. Could it be coincidence? Or was it an unspoken continuation of something that both families were slowly, carefully, beginning to accept? Because behind the protocol, there's something undeniable: the timing fits. Leonor, entering her 20s, has completed most of her official education and military training. Christian, too, is stepping into more public duties as future king. Both are heirs to powerful European thrones. Both share a rare, quiet understanding of pressure that few can relate to. And maybe, that's exactly what drew them together. Royal watchers have called this the most delicate cross-monarchy relationship since the early 2000s. But unlike past generations, Leonor and Christian represent a modern kind of royalty, one that values authenticity over image. And in 2025, authenticity is exactly what the world craves. Still, this raises questions that cut deeper than gossip. If Leonor truly follows her heart, could love reshape the monarchy's image? Could it soften Spain's often rigid view of duty and tradition? Or, would it risk the stability her parents have spent decades rebuilding? Spain is watching, not with condemnation, but with fascination. Because for the first time, the heir they've watched grow from childhood is acting not as a symbol, but as a human being. And maybe, that's the most royal thing of all. Political analysts in Madrid are cautious. Some call it a distraction, others call it destiny. But among the younger generation, Leonor's act is being celebrated. To them, she represents something long overdue, a monarch unafraid to be real. On social media, the phrase, "love wins the crown," trended for days, alongside photos of Leonor and Christian's subtle, almost cinematic reunion. It wasn't a scandal. It was a story of courage, of two young royals daring to be themselves in a world where everything they do is scripted. Meanwhile, both royal families are navigating carefully. Behind palace doors, advisors are discussing long-term implications, not only for image but for diplomacy. A future alliance between Spain and Denmark, through marriage, would be one of the most powerful symbolic unions in modern European history. But neither Leonor nor Christian has made a public statement. And that, perhaps, is their quiet rebellion: to live without explaining, to feel without confirming. Still, the emotional undertones can't be ignored. In one televised moment days after returning to Spain, Leonor attended a royal engagement, her first since the trip. Cameras caught her glancing briefly toward her mother. And in that quick, wordless exchange, Queen Letitia's eyes softened. It wasn't reprimand. It was recognition. Because she, too, had once been a woman who fell in love beyond expectation. As weeks passed, the story evolved. What began as, "Leonor leaves Spain for love," became something else, a narrative about change, courage, and a generational shift within Europe's monarchies. Where older royals built walls, the younger ones are building bridges. And as commentators have noted, Leonor's move may not have been impulsive, it may have been strategic. A signal that monarchy can coexist with emotion, without collapsing under it. Even among her critics, there's a reluctant respect. Because to step away from the crown, even briefly, is to risk everything she's been taught to protect. Yet she returned stronger, more grounded, more real, more loved than before. And while the official line remains that it was a private visit, Spain knows. This was a choice, a moment of self-definition, and one that history may look back on not as scandal, but as transformation. If you think about it, maybe this wasn't Leonor leaving Spain. Maybe it was her finding herself, outside the marble walls of expectation. And maybe Christian wasn't just waiting for her in Denmark. Maybe he was waiting for her to be free, to be ready to love without fear, without politics, without protocol. Because sometimes, the most shocking royal act isn't rebellion. It's honesty. And on that quiet night in Copenhagen, Princess Leonor didn't just choose love. She chose to live. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is certain: this chapter will be remembered not for scandal, but for courage. In the heart of Europe, two heirs, born to rule, but longing to be human, reminded the world that even behind crowns, titles, and centuries of duty, there still beats the same simple truth. Love changes everything.